All right, good afternoon. This morning, as you saw, the Secretary General addressed the opening session of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People. He said that the New York Declaration and its annexes, endorsed by the General Assembly last year, provide a clear and actionable path towards a two-state solution. But what matters, he added, is a durable change on the ground, and that, as we all sadly know all too well, the situation is very fragile. Since the October agreement, the Secretary General said more than 500 Palestinians have been killed. He urged all parties to implement the agreement in full, exercise maximum restraint, and comply with international law and UN resolutions. He also called for the facilitation of rapid and unimpeded passage of humanitarian relief at scale, including through the Rafah crossing. Mr. Guterres noted that more than 37,000 Palestinians were displaced in the West Bank in 2025 alone, a year that also saw a record high level of Israeli settler violence. He condemned once more in the strongest terms action taken by the Israeli government to demolish the UNRWA Sheikh Jarrah compound in East Jerusalem. Public threats by officials in Jerusalem against the staff of UNRWA are utterly abhorrent and must be met with unequivocal repudiation, he said. Turning to the situation on the ground in the Rafah crossing, our colleague Tom Fletcher, our emergency relief coordinator, welcomed the partial reopening of the Rafah crossing for people to leave and return to Gaza. He stressed, however, this is not enough and that Rafah must function as a real humanitarian corridor so we can have a surge in aid deliveries. The World Health Organization said earlier today that yesterday, when the crossing was opened, it facilitated the evacuation of 5 patients and 7 of their companions through the Rafah crossing. WHO added that its role focused on ensuring the safe transfer of patients from Gaza to the Rafah crossing. Today, more people are expected to move through that crossing. WHO has been facilitating the movement of patients and their companions as they did yesterday. The UN Development Program is also set to provide bus transportation for returnees from the internal checkpoints to Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. And that is where, as we told you yesterday, OCHA with several other UN and NGO partners has set up a reception area with medical, psychosocial, and referral service. Meanwhile, we and our humanitarian partners continue to respond to the existing and emerging emergency needs in Gaza. Our partners leading on food security report that as the end of January, around 25 partners produced and distributed 1.7 million meals every day through more than 180 kitchens, over 500,000 meals in the north and 1.2 million meals in the south. Our partners also report that they brought in around 650 metric tons of animal feed during January, and that the distribution is ongoing for both livestock holders and donkey owners that support essential services in Gaza. Our emergency shelter assistance, our partners report that during January, more than 83,500 families received assistance, including tents, mattresses, kitchens, utensils, and warm clothes. Our partners working in shelter reiterate the urgent need to move beyond emergency items towards a more sustainable solution. And our partners working on education continue their efforts to increase enrollment capacity through setting up new learning spaces, expanding existing ones, and supporting community-led initiatives. Supplies are arriving gradually, which should help with that effort. Moving north to southern Lebanon, and in answer to some of your questions yesterday, when I mentioned the substance that was dropped by the Israeli Defense Forces over areas near the Blue Line, I can tell you that our peacekeeping colleagues confirmed that they supported the Lebanese armed forces, the Lebanese authorities to collect samples north of the Blue Line to be tested for toxicity. The Lebanese authorities will test the samples, and UNIFIL remains in contact with them as they work to obtain results as quickly as possible. Separately, this morning, peacekeepers on patrol observed 2 drones hovering over them near Kafar Kela in Sector East. One drone carrying an unidentified object entered a range assessed as an immediate threat. Peacekeepers took defensive action, after which the drone dropped a stun grenade about 50 meters away, flying towards south towards Israeli territory. No injuries were reported, and the patrol continued. UNIFIL informed both the Israeli and Lebanese armies, as it does for all activities in sensitive areas along the Blue Line. The use of armed drones is, of course, unacceptable, and we reiterate the obligation of all parties to respect the Blue Line, ensure the safety of peacekeepers, and avoid actions that endangers them. Earlier today in Washington, our emergency relief coordinator, Tom Fletcher, participated in an event hosted by the United States. This event focused on mobilizing resources for the humanitarian response and building support for humanitarian truce in Sudan. In his remarks, Mr. Fletcher said the horrific humanitarian crisis in Sudan had endured for more than 1,000 days, and that is far too long. Too many days of famine, lives uprooted and destroyed, and women and girls subjected to terrifying sexual violence. Mr. Fletcher noted that the Secretary General has stressed that as this devastating war approaches its third year, the guns must fall silent and a path to peace must be charted. He reiterated our support for the work of the Quad, which is made up by the U.S., Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, and the work of the Quad to secure a humanitarian truce, including the demilitarization of key areas alongside the rapid scale-up of life-saving humanitarian assistance across the country. Meanwhile, on the ground, the continued insecurity in many regions is pushing more people to flee and deepening an already severe humanitarian situation. In South Kordofan State, an OCHA mission to the locality of Abu Jubaiya last week found more than 10,000 displaced human beings are living in camps that are facing critical gaps in food, healthcare, water, sanitation, shelter, and education services. Most of the newly displaced families fled insecurity and hunger in the state capital, Kadugli, and in the city of Dilling. Others came from West Kordofan and East Darfur states. Some traveled via South Sudan after long and dangerous journeys marked by theft, detention, and family separation. They need, obviously, immediate humanitarian assistance. Moving to North Darfur, our partners report that more than 1,000 people have arrived in Tawila in recent days. Families face acute shortages of food, health services, and basic household items. We and our partners are giving hot meals through community kitchens, but more support is needed to meet other basic needs. Displacements also continues in the states of East Darfur and Blue Nile. With humanitarian needs sharply rising and resources stretched, OCHA appeals to donors for funding so our partners can scale up critical assistance for millions of people across the country. This year's humanitarian appeal calls for $2.9 billion to reach more than 20 million people. And just south, in South Sudan, our humanitarian colleagues tell us the situation there is deteriorating across the country, and that is driven by renewed violence, civilian displacement, and access constraints, particularly in Jonglei, as we've been telling you. Since the end of December, renewed fighting and airstrikes in Jonglei have forced an estimated 280,000 people to flee their homes. Our ability to deliver critical aid remains restricted due to ongoing clashes and insecurity. Today, UNICEF warned more than 450,000 children are at risk of acute malnutrition nationwide as hostilities disrupt health and nutrition services, with 6 counties in Jonglei close to running out of therapeutic food assistance. Cholera is also spreading in Duke County, in Jonglei, overcrowding in displacement sites, and limited access to safe water sanitation are leading to, of course, more cases of cholera. We and our partners are expanding our treatment capacity and preparing for a vaccination campaign. Humanitarian operations remain under serious threat. Facilities, assets, including vehicles, boats, and offices and equipment have been looted or damaged, and aid workers have faced intimidation, undermining response efforts. The government has authorized a one-day access window for hard-to-reach areas in Akobo County, and that should be taking place on the 5th of February. The UN's Humanitarian Air Service, will operate a flight to pre-position supplies. This is the second flight permitted there this week, helping deliver critical assistance. And from Ukraine, Our humanitarian colleagues tell us that several civilians were killed and dozens injured in the past 24 hours in another wave of overnight attacks. The attacks also damaged energy infrastructure across 8 regions. Some 2,000 high-rise residential buildings in the regions of Kyiv, Kharkiv, Dnipro are currently without heating. Many other regions are also experiencing temporary power outages. That's what local authorities are telling us. The humanitarian coordinator for Ukraine, Matthias Schmale, said that repeated strikes on critical civilian infrastructure are disrupting the daily lives of millions of people, creating life-threatening conditions for the most vulnerable, including older people and children. Aid organizations are providing first aid and psychological support and setting up new warming points where people can get heat, as well as hot meals and charge their devices. UN agencies are providing generators and other supplies. We, along with our humanitarian partners, also continue to support frontline communities despite limited access. Yesterday's OCHA Crisis Response Director, Edem Ursurnu, joined a convoy that delivered food, medicines, hygiene supplies, and solar lamps to the residents of frontline community of Antonivka in the region of Kherson. Just a senior appointment that we shared with you last night, but I'm just reading into the record. Secretary General appointed Robert van der Zee of the Netherlands as his representative for the investment assets of something that's very dear to my heart, which is the UN Joint Staff Pension Fund. The older I get, the more important it gets. He succeeds Pedro Antonio Guazzo Alonso of Spain, to whom the Secretary General is grateful for his service. The Secretary General also wishes to extend appreciation to Toru Shindu, the Chief Investment Officer in the Office of Investment Management, who served as the acting representative from the 16th of July to August 15th last year. Currently, Mr. van der Zee has been serving as the acting representative of Secretary General, and previous to that, he served as the Chief Financial Officer for the World Food Program. He has about 30 years of experience in this field. We welcome him. Later this week, you will see a lot of police officers from different countries in the building because UN, we are hosting the 20th Chiefs of UN Police Components Conference, which is taking place from the 4th to the 6th of February, bringing together senior UN police leaders from peacekeeping operations and special political missions around the world. The participants will engage with senior UN leadership to address evolving security challenges and set priorities for the year ahead. Discussions will focus on the future of UN policing and the critical role that UN police play in advancing peacekeeping priorities, from harnessing data and new technologies to strengthening gender-responsive policing and operational pressures such as liquidity challenges in the field. Some participants will also brief the Security Council on Thursday in the afternoon. If you have interest to speak to any one of these police people, please speak to our peacekeeping colleagues. And we have a quiz today, 2 additions to the honor roll. The more associated with Scotland, bagpipes are also the national instrument of which country? Where they are known as the... Benno, you're not Googling, are you?
No.
Okay. Okay. The instrument is also known as the gaida in the local language, in the national language. We're happy to take money from anyone, but Wales is not a member state of the United Nations. It is Bulgaria. So, and this is a good one. In July of 1969, Neil Armstrong became the first human to set foot on the moon. During his trip, Armstrong brought a recording of classical music that he played on the moon. In which country was the composer of that music born? Do you want the name of the piece, at least?
Austria?
Nope. New World Symphony. Who wrote the New World Symphony? No, okay, sorry. Antonín Dvořák from the Czech Republic. So we thank our friends in Sofia and Prague. So just for the record, Bulgaria paid $2,260,615, and the Czech Republic $11,001,571, and we thank both of them. Edie.
Thank you, Steph. Since we're very focused on Sudan, can we get an update on what is actually happening in this effort to get all of the disparate parties to join together to try and get both sides into talks? I know there was this meeting in Egypt, but the results did not give us any
No.
clarity on that issue.
No, the clarity is not something that we have, but I will try to get you an update as soon as I can.
And secondly, there was this donors conference in Washington this morning, and apparently the press conference was canceled. So in favor of something called a fireside chat. Can we get an update on what actually happened since Undersecretary General Fletcher was there?
Tom was there. I kind of mentioned, I flagged to you at the beginning of the briefing what he said. We're waiting for an official announcement, but this is really, from my understanding, about the U.S. Providing funds through the United Nations for the humanitarian assistance in Sudan.
And there will be some kind of a release that you will send around?
From, if I get it, I will not sit on it. That I promise. Sinan Denamo.
Thank you, Stéphane. I have two questions. First, the U.S. and Iran are expected to meet in Turkey this Friday to discuss the nuclear program agreement. I wonder if, does the UN have any role? Like Secretary General, has any role? Is he going to monitor the situation, or will be any role?
Yeah, we're obviously, we've seen the reports of talks possibly starting later this week. We are very keen for a diplomatic solution to lower the tensions that we're seeing in the region. And we'll be monitoring closely, and I'll leave it at that for now.
Second question, please. There are reports that 8 convoys heading to Kobani have been stopped at the Turkish border, according to local resources. Is the UN in contact with the Turkish authorities to ensure the border is opened?
I will check on that for you.
Just one follow-up on Kobani. Yesterday, you said there were still shortages of water, communications, medical supplies, food, among other basic services. Any update on that? Why is there's an agreement between Damascus and the SDF? Why aren't they getting their electricity back, the people in Kobani?
Well, listen, we understand the shortages are still going on. I think people are trying to work through all of the needs. From our part, we're trying to deliver as much as we can, and we hope that obviously people will benefit from all basic services as quickly as possible.
Do you hear from your people on the ground what causes the failure to deliver, let's say, power and other basic services?
I do not.
Thank you.
Okay, Stefano.
Thank you, Stéphane. Is a follow-up question was asked you, yesterday, but I don't think again, your answer, I'm not sure if I understood.
I don't know if that's a you problem or a me problem.
No, it's it's very rare that the President of the United States give basically an interview dedicated to the United Nations. And in that case, he say, and Politico headline it, call me and I will fix the problems. So did the Secretary General
as soon as I have something, as I've been saying, on potential contact between the Secretary General and the President, I will let you know. As far as obligations of member states to pay up, we know what they are, and they're very clear. And the cash flow problem of the UN could be solved if member states who have an obligation to pay pay.
Yes, but yesterday you, in answering, you said, "Oh well, the Secretary General have constant contact with the ambassador of the United States at the UN." But in this case, again, the President of the United States says publicly in an interview to the Secretary General, called me, and we fixed the problem. Why he didn't call him yet?
Well, I just don't think you and I have fixed our problem, because I have no, I don't think I have anything more to say on what you're asking me. Okay, yes, Gabriel, and then we'll go to the screen.
Thanks, Steph. Is the Secretary General planning to attend the opening ceremonies of the Winter Olympics this week?
I will have an announcement for you on that in the next couple of days.
Okay. And on Rafah, you said that the WHO reported they helped 5 Palestinians evacuate. That was just via the Rafah crossing, correct?
That's correct.
And our reporters in Gaza are citing local health officials and people there, that it was 16. So I just want to be clear, your numbers from the WHO, you're not suggesting those are the total, that's just what the UN helped facilitate,
Right,
correct?
and from what I read, it's 5 patients and 7 accompanying people, right? So that gives us a total of 12. And as we've also said before, there are some patients who are getting out through other routes, through bilateral agreements that may not involve the World Health Organization. We don't have a monopoly on that. Okay, we'll go to the screen, please. Abu Siyaf, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Stéphane. This is Abu Sufyan from Bangladesh. The political crisis inside Myanmar is having a devastating impact on South and Southeast Asia. Several Bangladeshi have been also killed in clashes between the armed forces of Arakan state and the country's central government forces. Does UN Secretary General have any message to save South Asia from this conflict?
Well, as you know, we have continuously denounced the violence that has been inflicted on the civilians in Myanmar, with devastating impact on their lives, on their livelihoods, negative impact on the countries in the region, which have been, many of which, especially Bangladesh, have opened their doors and are hosting a huge amount of refugees. We continue to support the work of ASEAN and others to try to bring an end to the conflict and the crisis in Myanmar. Okay, any other questions? Thank you all. I'm told there was a press conference in Washington. It wasn't televised, but it was a press conference. Whether they were sitting down by a fire and answering questions